So first of all, my name's Emily, and as you probably know, I'm Josh's mom, and I'm probably gonna embarrass him. I've worked for the city of Providence for 25 years, and during that time, I was emergency call taker for the police side, dispatcher, and eventually a crew chief. Crew chief supervises the shift for the police communications department. These positions on a rotating schedule, operating 24 hours a day and 365 days a year. Generally, you work 4 days on, then 2 days off on a rotating schedule. Currently, my position is a TAC officer for the police communications, which means terminal agency coordinator. I work with the state police and FBI as a second party checker, as they both overlook and monitor every transaction the police department makes 24 hours a day. In some of these smaller cities and towns, they have just one personnel that does all three, police, fire, and medical, so I only do the police side. So with that being said, they also have to be part of the NCIC National Crime Information Center. That's anything that requires a report number has to be entered into the national database. Anything from stolen cars, plates, motorcycles, guns, articles, missing persons, warrants, just to name a few. Every single entry is monitored through the state police and then again, the FBI. So just to give an example how busy Providence is, now this is just the police side. Right now, we're up to 75,000 calls, just the police side right now, currently. And again, that's just for the police, and about 35,000 for fire and rescue calls. So think about that, we're only in September. We have about 90 different call types that we could potentially use on a daily basis. Obviously, some are used more commonly than others. And some call departments or fire and rescue departments have a little bit different ways they handle their things. But we do go to everything. So fire department and rescue doesn't go to everything. We, however, do. So if it's a house fire, police still have to go to make a report. A car accident that's, significant with injuries, an industrial accident, overdoses, things like that, police do still have to respond. So that's pretty much it as far as everything in a nutshell about what I do. So as far as any medical or advice, like you said about someone, feeling well or falling, I can't give that type of information, but I can certainly, help calm the situation down. I've pretty much seen and heard it all. And if I could show you graphic pictures and videos, I would, but I think we'll leave that out to that. But so I did answer a lot of your questions already, but if anyone would like to, I didn't put it online, I just was prepping myself, because I don't like to speak in front of people. So I can talk to anyone on a line in an emergency situation, but. So does anyone want to ask one of their questions that they had already posted, or? Go ahead.
What is one of the hardest things you ever had to do for the last one?
Let's see. Well, being on the police, that was a dispatcher at that time, and actually an officer had just gotten shot twice, and believe it or not, he was the calmest one on the radio. Everyone else is screaming and yelling, send cars, send this, send that. And a lot of streets sound alike too, and they're in a stressful, hyper loud, static situation, they're undercover. And at that point, my father was in narcotics, so I remember thinking, that's the first thing I was thinking it was him. And he was one of the calm ones. This other officer came right over, and he was the one that actually took control, and he was the one that was actually shot at. So he didn't survive, he was fine. That and a lot of younger kids calls that, they're hiding under the bed, or their parents are fighting and whatnot. I don't like to hear that stuff, but. Go ahead.
What do you consider to be the easiest part of your job? What do you consider
The easiest? I don't know if there's an easy part. It's different every day, it's challenging every day. Nights, weekends, holidays, a Sunday afternoon could be busier than a Friday night, it depends on the shift. But the easiest is having good coworkers, to help each other, and we still ask each other questions all the time. Should I put it in for this, or should I do this, or should we send that? So, having a good team. Yes, Cooper?
What is the youngest caller you've ever had that kind of worried you?
The youngest caller?
Yeah.
Like 5 or 6, usually. And they're pretty, you'd be surprised on what they've seen and heard over the years too. And so you kind of have to talk on their level a little bit and just, just ask questions if mom or dad or boyfriend or girlfriend, or, does anyone have any weapons or knives? You'd be surprised in some of the terminology that they do know. And, to keep them on the line until the police are on scene. And
So what does on their level mean to you?
Well, like you're kind of like, sound.
But they don't know this yet.
I know, but it's, hi sweetie, what's going on? Oh, my mom is, she's hurt, she's bleeding, can she be, moved? Is she alert? Well, I'm not sure, she hasn't moved yet. Who's in the house with you? Well, her boyfriend was in the house, and well, do you know if he's in the house now? And no, I don't, okay, and I shouldn't be bringing this up, can I talk about the transgender thing? So, she was young enough, this girl, to say, they are transitioning. So I'm like, what, they are transitioning? I'm going, well, how many people in the house? They are in the house, so they meaning 2, right? You think plural. So they thought they were looking for two suspects that had jumped out the bedroom window. It was the one, the boyfriend, that had severely beaten her. And, but she kept saying they, so I kept saying, use caution, there might be two subjects on the scene, and that was kind of a little awakening call for me, for someone that young that knew
Use of pronouns.
he was, And I find that more so now lately. Come on, Josh, go ahead. Oh.
Does it make you feel better that you're helping people, or are you kind of like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but like, kind of like stuck because people are also getting harmed in the thing?
Oh, were you the one that wrote that question?
I was.
Let me see what I wrote for that. Of course, it makes you feel better helping anyone, and there's a lot of situations that even though it ends at that day, I like to see what happens, what happened in the long run, what happened, that afternoon, and, someone seek help afterwards. It depends, every situation is different, but it is rewarding, I'd say 90% of the time. Go ahead.
What's your schedule? I know you went over it a little bit, but like for your working schedule, like what is it like? Are you sitting behind a desk all day? Or?
So currently I went through all the steps already, so I've been on the city for 25 years, so I did, call taking, which is one step, and then you can become a dispatcher if you want, and then if not, you can become a crew chief if you want. So those positions are different like other towns. I don't know how Smithfield, they do all police, fire, and medical, and there's only one position, right? If they dispatch, they also enter in stuff.
Yeah, so our police department and our fire department have their own dispatching,
Like entity or something.
yeah, areas. But fire will dispatch fire, police will dispatch, police, and then they have to enter in all their calls.
So whoever is answering calls also has to enter in whatever they're doing, if it's the stolen auto report, an accident, that type of stuff. So for us, we're a little different, so they're different scales of pay also. A lot of overtime money to be made, you work nights, weekends, and holidays, so there's that. It rotates 4 days on, 2 off, which I feel like a lot of departments do for police anyway.
How many of you work in your location?
So in our building, I'd say call takers, I think our minimum manning is 7, and usually up to 11, depending on the day or time off. Because we always have at least 3 dispatchers, 1 crew chief who also can be a dispatcher, so that's 4, and then 4 call takers, usually. And then we have 2 people in the back that enter in all the stuff.
How many calls on average?
I just say, so what we're up to, I just looked yesterday, 75,400 calls, just police line. That was as of yesterday. And fire and rescue have a little over 35,000.
All right, just for reference, we probably get maybe around like 4,000 calls a year. So they're obviously, their numbers are clearly staggering compared to ours.
That's every call that ever went in, whether it was a music call, a shooting call, that's every call that's put in. Oh, go ahead.
What was the biggest event or emergency that you tended to?
Well, a lot of times when it's a chaotic event, such as, actually, it was the riots downtown, did you guys assist?
Oh, yeah.
A few departments assisted with that. That was, in my opinion, complete chaos on our end. I mean, it's different on your end, but everyone's talking, 2 or 3 different channels, everyone's yelling or screaming, or you almost had to just sit back and just listen. It was, I don't even know how to explain how we even got through that, because they were just rioting and looting and destroying cars and people for no reason, in my opinion, but that's another topic. But they were being very disruptive and causing more harm to not really prove a good point. But that was a little scary. And any type of big, if there's a chase with a shooting and that, where we keep a couple channels open and we assist other departments, on the highway or state police, that gets kind of fun and exciting, but hopefully it ends well, not all the time. Go ahead.
What have you found to be the best way to communicate with someone when you're on the line with them and they're in a dire situation?
Well, it depends on the situation. Hopefully they say right away what the nature of the call is, so that kind of changes the questions. So, I don't know, it would have to depend on what situation it was. But sometimes they're crying and they're hysterical and they're screaming and they just start swearing and they want you to just send the police, send the police. One time I asked, okay, where do you want me to send the policeman? Why are you asking me these questions? You've done beep. I'm like, I only asked the address, like, let's get somewhere first. But they get mad, and sometimes you have to kind of yell a little bit, but assertive, to calm the situation down. Say, I know you need help, but it's not helping anybody swearing and screaming into the phone. And, at least if you get the address, we can start there, or a phone number. A lot of addresses within the city have called, obviously, numerous times, so you can trace that cell phone up to previous calls. So when they hang up, say they're like, oh my God, someone's breaking in, and hang up. I can look up that phone number to see if anyone had ever been there. And if there's 10 addresses to that phone number, all the same, then chances are that we'll go there and check. And 90% of the time, that's right.
So can you expand on finding, like you gave the example of knowing where to go. How is it that the streets are labeled? Is it odds and evens, right side, left side?
It's-
Can you ping by the
A cell phone-
landline?
Yeah, a landline can be pinged accurately.
Okay.
Say 21 Smith Street, third floor. A cell phone is, it's like a GPS radius, and being that the houses are so close together, it might ping, like in North Smithfield, this house, and probably is that house. But in all the 3 families and everything is so close together, it's hard. So that's why we kind of cross-reference that number or that particular address if we need the call back, vice versa. And, all right, well, that's funny, 9 out of 10 calls were at this particular address on that floor, so at least we can start there for someone that might just call, especially if it's, a trouble house.
The training, what was the training? Like, were you required to train or like to pick up calls, like, how were you?
I'm actually a trainer too, so I can actually leave this and you guys can see all this emergency call taking guides that we still utilize. I started when I was 19, so I was 20 months later, so basically 20 years old. And I thought I wanted to be an officer, but then I was at work double shifts all the time and felt like I was a little safer, and we actually got paid a little more, sorry. And at the time, so that's how, and I just never left, and I was 25 years later, so I do love what I do. I missed a lot of family time back in the day, working the nights, weekends, and holidays. We pretended Christmas wasn't on a Christmas sometimes when they were 2. They didn't know any better. But now working Monday through Friday and having, my own office. I like to play detective sometimes.
So to start, did you have interest in it? Like, how did you just decide, I'm gonna go work for the city?
That's a good question. Well, I was taking some law criminal justice classes and whatnot, and my father at the time was in the city, so he had said, oh, they're hiring, at communications, you should put your bid in. So I said, okay. And I didn't get it the first time around, but I was still going to school, so second time around, I got the job, and I haven't left since.
So you said you're a trainer. How many people have you trained?
I've probably trained 15 to 20 maybe.
That's impressive.
We have a new bunch now, but I'm not training currently. I'll help out and they'll spend a day with me, but like the new police recruits have to come in and spend a day with me to see the other side, so that gives a different perspective. In fact, years ago, they had to do a whole year in communications to see the other side. So that, I feel like, a lot of those guys have since retired or, but it's funny how they had a different outlook, seeing on the other side what to do, so that's kinda helped.
So when you mention the other side, what is the other
Like
side?
the police side, you know what I mean? So the communication side, so they come in and they spend a few hours or a shift with us, the new academy recruits, or people that just stood off.
And the first time you had to bid, so that you put an application in, I would imagine?
We were just talking about that, it's way different now, I don't remember back in the day, but yes, I go through a lot of the resumes and have to do a background check on all the people that even apply just to come into the building. So I already know.
And what kinds of things would you say would give a candidate a better chance at, becoming employed
I
in
mean,
a
if
communications role?
Communications major or public speaking, or, you wanna become an officer or any type of, again, just Providence is just, for what I do is just communications for just police. But I mean, most of the time you can start off anywhere and that just always looks better, I think. You could even be a dispatcher for a tow company or a police in a mall, like Providence Place Mall, like security officer, so to speak. So, they all kind of get all tied in together, and you have to start somewhere. And then they do recommend doing this APCO training class, which you can do online. They will reimburse, and that's, if anyone was interested, I could certainly get that.
Yeah, would you
material.
jot that down?
Yep.
I don't have my notes in front of me, if you
Well,
could,
down
in case anybody is interested.
So I haven't used that in a while, but I'm still APCO certified, so that helps. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people, we try all different, someday you wanna be in that field, but you wanna start off on the bottom, so I wouldn't say you need a lot of prerequisites.
How about just candidacy, like skills? What would you look for in someone who might choose this as a career option?
Well, on time, I feel like a lot of people are not on time. Now, if you had a meeting at 9 o'clock, now would you come at 9:20 or 9:40? Anyone? No? Off the list, like 10 off the list. One call, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, I'm out to lunch. Can we reschedule? Oh, I'm sorry, you're out to lunch. Nope, off the list. I'm like, what is wrong? So no, very assertive, be on time, ask questions, do a little research. I mean, obviously, if you're thinking you're gonna work at a store in a mall, you're not gonna go, apply for that job. You're gonna know a little bit, I would think, what it entails. But a lot of people do get surprised on, how busy, it is and stuff.
Do they have to take like a typing test, or, sometimes?
They do
you-
not, however, that definitely helps. And you'd be surprised on the quick keys and everything we use, we abbreviate so much on things that if you asked me to type a term paper for somebody, I probably would be like, hold on, wait, I type in the basic things so many times a day that, it's, like my husband, he didn't type fast, he can write down everything. But,
Okay.
anyone else?
Wanted to ask, when it comes to like, obviously prank calls are not good and stuff, how do you deal with prank calls and stuff like that?
We have to pretend every call is real, and 99% they are not. But it's gonna be that one time that actually was real. Bomb threats, or kids just wanna pull the fire alarm, or say there's a bomb in the school, or, that's fun for you guys to maybe miss a few hours of class, but they still have to investigate the whole thing, where it came from, where the call came from. Is it a burner phone, is it a 911 only phone, is it, that type of thing. So yes, we do have to pretend and secure, especially if it's a mall or a bank or a school. I mean, you have to take every call serious. So.
What about like how does the person get dealt with afterward? Like, is there a fine of some
Oh,
sort?
that I wouldn't know, you might know. If they can prove who it is, I'm sure, yeah, they get charged with something, but I don't know if they ever can with those new spoof phones and.
Yeah, when it comes to pulling a fire alarm, obviously, most schools nowadays have security cameras. So if we're able to deduce who it is, then yeah, they can get charged. It's a misdemeanor. I don't remember the charge off the top of my head, but, so there's that route. We're not as busy as Providence is, so I mean, we would rarely deal with that, but if and when we would, I think that would be the step we would take, would go to the juvenile hearing board.
Yeah, how old they were and stuff.
Mhm.
Does anyone try to attack the call center or anything like that?
Actually, during the riots, they had to board up all our windows and stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm. And we're not in the main police station, I don't know if you know that, we're in the communications building, separate entity, we have West Exchange, where the tunnel is for the convention center?
Yeah.
The old 911 building, used to be the 911,
Okay.
the Alfred Mellon building. So, mhm.
What's the most interesting or funny story that you have?
Oh, we have a lot of regulars that call, a lot of my friends call, in fact, my friends even transfer them to my house on my days off. So I do check on my regulars, who I can't even tell you what they talk like, but yes, we have a lot of, and if they don't call for a while, a lot of these homeless people that call, they obviously have substance abuse problems and a lot of things going on, but, I try to calm them down, because sometimes they'll keep calling, so like, Emily, take this call, shoot, Barbara will not stop calling, I'm like, all right, Barbara, listen up. Do you want me to bring you lunch? I need a pack of cigarettes. All right, I'll bring you a pack of cigarettes. You need to calm down. I don't, but it just calms her down, so she stops calling for 4 minutes. But we do check on them every now and again. If she doesn't call, I'll be like, hey, has Barbara called? How many times today? No? We check on her.
Well, everybody had 3 questions, so we need some action from this side of the room. Okay. Anybody
There were
else?
a lot
have
of
one?
repeats in here, because I pretended I answered them before.
Well, how about the categories of different sections in your training
Oh,
packet?
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, sorry, Tom.
I don't know if you said this, but have you been a dispatcher and a call taker? And which one do you prefer?
Well, I knew I kind of wanted to move my way up, so it's kind of a good starting point, because you want to be a call taker first, well, you have to be. And then every other hour you dispatch, and then you go back to take calls. Now, if you don't want to be a dispatcher, you don't have to. That's another, pay raise or rank up. And then the crew chief, there's always gonna be one on the shift, so they supervise the whole shift and have to know how to do all the jobs.
Could you explain the different levels, or like how
I'd
much?
say the call take, like price point? pay?
Yes.
Well, again, it rotates, so there's built-in holiday pay, so that roughly, a call taker makes about 50 grand without overtime. And again, there's built-in overtime, and one year you might have all the holidays or wanna work the holidays. So they start at 50 for just the police, just for call taking. And I think dispatchers make maybe 20 more, and then a crew chief a little bit more than that. So they're definitely the higher paid. I think they're paid higher than some of the lieutenants, if I'm not mistaken. But there's also in my position now, on Monday through Friday, there's no overtime, so I do miss that. Especially the way things are now, but pricey. But there's a lot of money to be made, a lot of overtime. In fact, we're hiring if anyone's 18 yet.
Right? How about, can you speak to like job conditions, the stress? You said long shifts, like, is it 8 hours, 12 hours?
So the 8-hour shifts, we're 7 to 3, you're allowed to do another 8 hours, 16, but you have to go home for 4. You can't do 24. So they only can hold you for 8 more. You can take 8, so you can willingly take 8 or get held over for 8. Held over means they went through the whole list out of the 24 operators, call takers. No one wanted it, and you're the least senior on the shift, you're stuck. So there was a lot of times where I was stuck, where I didn't wanna be, and I wanted to be at your cookout and Christmas Eve and everything else, and you get stuck. That, however, is time and a half or double time, so it works out in a way, but, you never know, so don't ever make plans, that's what I always say. Because it rotates. Unless you really need it off, you can take a vacation day. So, and then, yeah, that's it, you need 4 in between before you can work another 8. You're not allowed to do 24. Are you guys allowed to do 24?
No, 16 hours on, and then it's a mandatory 8 hours.
Oh, you're 8, yeah, we're at 4.
What is something you've learned in all your time of being, well, a dispatcher, or someone who takes calls?
That's a lot of different types of people in this world with a lot of different good and bad problems. We have some people that call up just to thank us, not to yell at us. I feel like police get a bad rap nowadays, it's terrible. I would never wanna be an officer. I thank you for being one. There's just a lot of, well, you got everything's being recorded now, everything's accounted for, everything is, technology can hurt you, technology can definitely help you, but sometimes you're only seeing one side of the media and one side of one thing. There's a lot more good than, you always hear the negative, remember that.
Right, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Come on, Charles, think of a question now. They do have a basketball league.
They do, actually.
I did talk to your father.
They do.
about that. They do. Well, anyway, I can certainly leave this, I wasn't gonna make copies for everybody, but.
Yeah,
so
maybe I
everybody-
could have, that's the, could you explain what that is?
So this is what we give all the new people, so it stops, so if it's, when you put a call in for service, so loud music would be a green call, where a disturbance in progress would be a yellow call, and a red call would be shooting, stabbing, break in progress, home invasion, stuff like that. So those are the different calls. So when you're taking a call, it's all, oh, I meant to print that. It's all, it's pretty much right there. It's a box, and you almost kind of fill in the blanks. Now, if you can't type fast, you're writing it down. But you almost follow the call card. So when you're nervous and you're in this high stressful situation, the first thing, address. Second box is phone number, name, and then the narrative and what the nature of the call is. So this all is like, so it's all alphabetical order. So it starts with, well, first it starts with 911. 911 hang-ups, 911's from a business, 911's from a cell phone, a landline, and then it goes from abandoned vehicles, abduction, alarms, assaults, you get the whole break in progress, it goes through all the carjacking, CD, all the way up. So there's 90 different call types for the police side. So they range from, we do use a lot of the same ones quite often, but there's pretty much a call type for every situation.
And once you get the type identified, what kinds of things would these people most likely have to provide to you? What questions should they be asking somebody who might need care, or if they witness something, what kinds of things should they be looking for information pieces?
Yeah, so that is going both ways. You ask like a direction of travel when it's a hit or an accident, or a subject fleeing from a robbery or an assault or anything. Always make sure you try to get a good description, ask the questions. Did you get a description? And most people are not cooperative, and you're gonna kinda ask 2 or 3 or 4 times, And, sometimes that gets frustrating, because then on the different end, they're typing in the call as a call taker, and say I'm the dispatcher. I'm reading everything verbatim what they're typing. So, you say, white male, red shirt, down the hill, up the street, took off in this kind of car, partial plate, or whatever. Might be heading here, and then someone else chimes in and goes, I heard it was a blue car with a red. I'm like, oh boy, so now we're looking for a blue car, a red car, what are we looking for now? But a lot of times, and they don't always match the license plates, so they know there's still plates that doesn't match the car, so we'll never find them, but we do. So it's always pertinent questions to ask. Sometimes they hang right up, I'll call right back. Excuse me, but, sometimes they can't. Sometimes they're in a situation where they have to go help the situation out themselves, or they just don't wanna leave their name and number and get involved. But it depends on, how to take control of the call right away by them saying, hey, I wanna report a robbery. Now, to me, a robbery is like in progress. They mean their car radio was stolen 2 weeks ago out of their car. So you know, right away, you'd ask a different type of question, you know. Why'd you wait so long to call? Did you just get it on your ring cam? Did you get a description? That type of thing. Or a robbery where it just happened and the store was just robbed. So it depends on what they say is how you would react.
How do you guys deal with like language barriers or?
We do, oh, that's a good question. We do have a language line, so when we hit the language line, it's automatically programmed, so I hit, you know, conference, language line, conference. And I'd say 95% is Spanish, but we do have to get a lot of other languages that I never really even heard of, Laos, and, you know, I mean, like, you think it's just maybe Mandarin or Chinese, it's not, like, but that doesn't happen often. I'd say Spanish or Portuguese usually, and they're kind of similar. I can take a few things, I could take a stolen auto in Spanish, I could talk a little bit. We have a prompt that we say on how to get, you know, what to go to the next step, what to say, that's like on a call card on your desk, just to tell them that, you know, we're gonna get an interpreter for whatever language they need. And sometimes it takes a minute because it's an outside source that rings in, so sometimes that 2 or 3 minutes can be crucial by the time we get someone that can interpret, so.
And these people are located where?
Well, we're hoping that they're in Providence, if they're in Providence, no, but not, yeah, it's because they're in Providence and need help, but they don't speak English, so.
No, the interpretation line.
Oh, they could be anywhere, a lot
Anywhere?
of them are landlines from home, so a lot, you know, that's like a second, I don't think it's a call center, it used to be years ago, but I don't believe it is.
So have you ever experienced someone in critical condition while off duty or while not, no? Alright.
I wanted to ask, what is, like, how long does it usually take for you to dispatch someone or get someone to their location in case of an emergency? Like, maybe in a second.
So, as a dispatcher, you know where,
Maybe somebody's calling.
as a dispatcher, you need to, call taker would have to put that information as quickly as possible. So that hopefully wouldn't take more than a minute or two. Then the dispatcher gets it, we read it, we dispatch the officer. So it's district, so it depends on, we know what car to send by what area it comes up. So usually there should be somewhat close, but you never know. I mean, they could be, I mean, obviously they have lights and sirens, but they could be stuck in traffic depending on the time of the day, and sometimes you have to wait for backup depending on the severity of the call, so that could wait another 2 minutes, but those minutes are very crucial.
That's a good question though, Robert.
How do you issue out those, like the Amber Alerts and when your phone like, goes off?
I don't, you know what, I don't know who does that, if it's state police or not. Because I know how to do an Amber Alert with state police, and we have to override it with them. A silver alert, or fortunately, we've never had to do a blue alert means if an officer is like kidnapped or taken. Have you ever heard of those?
No.
No? So, there's Amber Alert, silver alerts for the elderly people. I don't know if you've ever seen them on the highway, it will say silver alert, and it'll show the plate and the MVD and who they're looking for. So, I help with those too.
Yeah, that all gets pushed out through state police. I think it's through the 911 communications.
Yeah,
So if we called 911 from here, it would go to 911 dispatch?
So if you call 911, it's really 911 in Situate State Police Barracks. However, you say, you know, police, fire, medical, they know you're calling from here. So they'll reroute you to North Smithfield Police. So it's almost like, it's funny because Providence, out of the 90 calls or 75,000 calls, most people don't call 911. You'd be surprised. They call 272-1111, the emergency line.
Really?
Yep. Now, if you don't know where you are, call 911 because it can kind of pinpoint at least where you are. You know, out-of-state people or college kids, they don't always know where they are. But it just gets rerouted. So if you call 911 and you're here, or call 911 in Barberville, it will send you to that department, that city or town.
I wanted to ask, if someone called you and they're just not cooperating, but it's an emergency situation, but they just don't want to hear anything from you, they're just kind of babbling, what do you do?
Well, hopefully we can, if they didn't give the address, we can hopefully, you know, somehow, like I said, track it by the phone number that might come up. We'll try to get something out of it. Sometimes other people call for the same type of situation, so then we kind of can associate when they were saying like a partial street, we could kind of, oh, that must be related. But sometimes they hang up, and you just have to put the call on how it came in. I think they said this street, the callback number was this, but a lot of them are 911 only phones, so they only can call 911 from it, you can't call them back. So they can call you 911, but you can't call the number back.
And if you have somebody on the line, when do you ask them to hang up or end the call?
Oh, and 911 loves to stay on the phone, especially for Providence calls. We're like, you can hang up now, because sometimes they interrupt us. You know, they'll say this, and this, so.
Isn't it sometimes bad to like just, like you wouldn't want someone to hang up in an emergency because if they don't stay on the phone with you, you don't know what's happening anymore, or you kinda.
Yeah, that's a good question. But sometimes, again, they don't wanna be involved or not involved. And they might not know anything else, you know.
Yeah.
I would say our 911 calls have probably gone up through the Good Samaritan law and all the overdoses that we've had over the last several years.
Oh, God, well, what does it, say something, say something?
Yep.
People call all the time. Don't ever feel like you don't wanna call for anything that you think is out of the norm anytime. Right, you'd rather have someone check it, even if they're joking around or.
I think, isn't one of the biggest reasons though, because people are afraid they may get charged or something may happen to them if.
They don't wanna be involved because now you have your number and your address where you're calling from.
Yeah.
Right, but if they say no, I mean, technically, I guess they could come back and talk with you, but. I don't know, maybe they do here, but we would have too many of those to follow up on, I think. Josh, you had all these questions, you were practicing with me last night, what happened? He's been hearing this his whole life, so.
Why is there such a shortage in dispatchers?
Yes, who said that, yes. Years ago, that would be the place to be, everyone wanted that job. I remember when I got it, they're like, you might not get it, I didn't for the first year or two. And now it's, like I said, it's like pulling teeth, I don't know what people expect or see or don't wanna work nights, weekends, holidays, I don't know what it is. But a big group retired in the last few years, so there were people that worked already 20+ years, and I'm on 20 years, but 20 years before me, so there's gonna be a lot of newer, I feel like right now, we're in the process of hiring two, which will be hired probably this week, but they might not stay, they might not like it, or they might not pass training.
What are the requirements, like, is there a sort of education level, like you have to have, like, you know,
18.
just 18?
I mean, obviously, they would like, I mean, if you said you were a student, they would take you, I mean, if that was what you kinda wanted to do, that's what I wanted to do, and that's how I started, I know, that, you know, I was still in college.
And does the benefit package include like health, medical,
Yes, we have
dental?
one of the best benefit packages, that's why a lot of people take jobs sometimes because of benefits, because if you have to pay out of pocket or, you know, a whole separate entity, it's, and your whole family gets it, so my husband's retired, so now we used to have double coverage. And now we don't, and I don't know if any of you probably know what your parents have, but that makes a big deal. Have good benefits.
You guys have like advertisements like join the force or something, or is it just by like will?
No, not, police does, but, yeah, we don't. We do not.
How do you know about
You're
hiring?
definitely gonna be the poster for that, you're gonna be the poster child for that.
What was the question?
He wants to know if we have like ads or posters, you know, they do for like the
Recruitment.
police department.
Recruitment drive. I mean, can do it. but-
Sure, we'll do it, you'll be right on the front page.
That's a good senior project idea. Not for me.
Listen, in all honesty, like she was saying earlier, that's a high stress job that sometimes it's thankless. They do a lot, they give us a lot of information so that we're able to do our jobs out on the road. And if it wasn't for them getting us the information we needed, people wouldn't get the help they need. So I mean, if it's something you're thinking about doing, it'll be worthwhile, it'll be selfless a lot of times, but
The trickle effect of.
yeah.
Have you ever had to deal with like a coworker that is just not doing their job, like online, and like they're just not good with people?
Well, I'm not sure if they would stay, if they weren't that great with people, but everyone does have a bad day once in a while. So sometimes you do have to step in
Yeah.
and take over the call and tell them to go for a walk, or maybe even leave for the afternoon. Yes, that has definitely happened. And sometimes if it is a big situation call, they'll give you the day off.
Do they have supports? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Nanny.
yeah, we have the same.
So you got like a peer support group or something.
I'm actually the natural helper for my department, that's what they call it.
What is it called?
It's called a natural helper.
Aw.
And I'll never forget, this one girl literally just started like 3 days. So I said, oh, my name's Emily, and if you ever need to talk, just let me know. She starts crying right on the spot. I went, oh, well, I didn't really mean today, or like I wasn't really ready. To this day, she still teases me. She didn't last in that department, she's at City Hall. But it was funny, I wasn't really ready, like the first day I met her. She's gonna cry the first day, what, you didn't want the job? We still joke about that, but yes, you can talk to Or it's sometimes the big calls or the suicide calls, or I've heard a kid shoot his brother over an Xbox on the phone. The mother was no, and killed his brother. That's not even funny.
Right.
That was used
No.
for tape purposes. It was, and I'm like, over an Xbox? I'm like, what are they doing? And they wouldn't go to school, and the brother point blank shot him, and I heard the shot right, and he was dead, one shot. While the mother was on the phone, and the other kid was playing Xbox, I just stared for like 10 minutes, thinking it wasn't even real. Never mind when the officer went in, but, you know, I couldn't even believe I heard that. I thought maybe a door slammed. I was like, that was the one fatal shot over Xbox. Right, boys, when I hear you guys swearing on Xbox?
No.
Only Josh.
Oh, no, you
He doesn't swear. Yeah, you'd be,
Have you ever had like a dispatcher or someone that takes a call, so just hang up on someone in an urgent situation because they're just kind of sick of someone, and
Yes.
that person actually got hurt?
they get suspended. Oh, well, hurt. I
Or got
don't
like
know.
endangered or anything?
Yeah, they could have been. I know a lot of, was an off-duty officer, I don't know if you remember back in the day, that was shot off-duty. That was horrific, but if 10 people call for the same disturbance, and someone might have a gun, you don't say, oh, we already have that call, hang up, because you have something different, you have something different, you have something different. And this call taker, who was still a call taker, he had started, but he never asked what the guy looked like, and he was an off-duty officer. But he was dressed in dark clothing, he was at night in the club, and the way they have video, and that's another story, but he never asked if he knew that, or knew what, you know, whatever, anything could have been a red car he was standing next to, or he was wearing a blue hat, something else. And that was used for tape purposes and training, because he really didn't ask, and you could have been that third person. So he got in trouble for not asking, and then, you know, you have to put out everything, even if it sounds silly, because people call up and say the stupidest thing, and as long as they say it on a recorded line, we have to say it, so. You know, there's a lot of, you could have one more piece of an evidence or a partial plate on anything, you have one more number or letter on that plate, that can always help, so.
And you're continuously relaying information to
Yes.
people in the
And
field.
updates each call, you know. Do you have a CAD system like in your car, or,
We do, yeah, I have a.
so you can see what the dispatch is?
Data terminal, yeah.
So that's a newer feature, so they do you get to see the pending calls too?
Yeah, I can see pending calls, open calls.
We opt not to let them see the pending calls.
Oh, yeah? Well, you
Well,
guys
we have
get so
about 2
many
sheets
though.
of them, but no,
Yeah.
two, like.
Yeah.
Because they end up going to call sometimes without telling anyone, and that's what another issue is. Don't put yourself on the way to a call without
Right.
telling us. I mean, I can tell if you put yourself on it.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that little loud music call turned into, so they opted to, you know, take that out of the. Once they dispatch, they can see it, but nothing pending.
So you say that you can get in trouble, so like what would be the penalties, like the level of?
So first you get a written warning, if you get in trouble, she's asking, you know, if you were to get in trouble for not doing your job, and people, I've gotten suspended before, so I understand. But for not doing your job, or it was a school lockdown actually, and it was a drill, but this one wasn't a drill, and I didn't ask one other question, and they used me as an example, and I did get suspended for a day. First you get a written warning, a verbal warning, written warning, and then suspension, so. In the 25 years, it goes in that step, so I had a suspension once in the 20-something.
And is it all scripted, Emily? Like when?
You have a whole file.
So if the call comes in, like you just mentioned, it was school related, does it tell you exactly what to ask?
No,
So you have to know it.
yes, which is on here. I mean, like I said, it's kind of filling in the blank. Once you hit juvenile matter, so that would pertain to a school issue or whatever. I mean, unless it was a lockdown, we have a code for lockdown. A bomb threat, we have a code for, so then you kind of know you're not gonna ask, are there any injuries at the car accident if you're putting in a call for, you know what I mean? Like you almost fill in the blanks. And some calls are different. You might say disturbance, we might say it's a keep the peace or an argument. I mean, there's different ways to say things, but you're still primarily asking the same question. You know, are they still on scene? What do they look like? What direction? For any type of call.
So when you say like there's different like protocols that you have to do, and say there were 2 different protocols, how would you go on about that? Would you do both of those?
So there wouldn't really be a right or wrong. In some calls, I'm sure, like, you know, 911 hang up, nothing said, and it's a coin phone, and it turned into someone was robbed and had to hang up quick. I mean, anything can turn into something else.
Yeah.
Just business alarms, that's how I know a few officers, like Steve Shaw, and that was a regular alarm that he got shot through the door, and on a call in a house that they go through all the time. So you have to pretend every call is just as serious, because that one time you're, you know,
Have you ever all been busy, all the dispatchers? You said minimum of 7 up to 11. What happens if calls are coming in and nobody's?
Oh, it never ends, it never ends.
So what, do they just put them on
The day
hold?
shift-
How does it work?
So the day shift, is, criminals don't tend to wake up that early. So we feel like days are a lot of like accidents in the morning, alarms, stuff like that. I mean, there are big things that have happened, don't get me wrong, but 3 to 11 is primarily your busiest shift. So say 11 of us are on the phone, there's 2 or 3 lines ringing. Now, if you wanna talk about your car radio that was stolen for 18 minutes, okay, ma'am, I'm gonna have to put you on hold, I have a couple of other calls coming in. You know what I mean?
So they
we
just
can-
wait in
we
queue.
can do that, yeah, they're in queue, yeah. And we know how many are in queue, and they can tell you how many calls your desk took and how many you took and how many you let, you know.
Cycle through.
Is it based off of like which call is more serious than the last,
Mhm.
or like, so like compared to a robbery to multiple murders, that would?
Oh, well, those would probably be in the same category, actually. Actually, well, it depends, if it was a robbery with a weapon or not. Yes, but those, we have, you have to remember, there's not 10, 11 people that are relaying information, and if it's that busy, we have to split the city, we have 2 dispatchers. That's Providence so big, so we'll use all non-emergency on one channel, and all, you know, the robbery or the chase on another channel. I'm sure you've heard some chases on Intercity.
All right, so before we start the hustle and bustle of packing up, does anybody have any final takeaways or thoughts?
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
You can ask.
That's crazy.
Has there ever been like a school shooting around you ever had to like tend to, or like,
Go to?
yeah, not like go to, but like talk to someone like through it and stuff like that?
No, but we do have a shooting like drill. Actually, it's implemented in a lot of schools and they can track where the shooter goes. It's like an infrared. I don't know how that really works, to be honest with you, but, we did have to do one class that was a few years ago.
Was that,
Have you said the name of the company?
oh,
No, it's like a company, like when we have it on our screen when it's an active, you know, they do active shooter drills all the time in the
Yeah.
academy, so they pretend like it's happening. And, it's like an infrared, it's almost like the tracker alert. You ever have the trackers, when a bank gets robbed, they have a die pack and that tracks, so we can track where their cars go, the bank robber. So it's kind of like that. If they know there's a shooter on the drill, they press something, and I don't know how that works. I could find that out, but that was fairly new a few years ago, and I don't know if that's ever been implemented. We might not have even accepted that service, who knows, but there are ways to.
did y'all have a school, well, not a school shooting, but a shooting outside of, was it Central High?
Oh, yeah,
Was it a couple years ago?
Well, we got a few,
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you guys do then? It's just gathering information?
You'd be surprised that some of them come in, we have school resource officers at every school, like 4 and 5 of them, so on those primarily tougher schools, they have a lot more. So they're already on scene and stuff, so sometimes it doesn't even come into the call center yet, and they already know that there's a shooting. Sometimes it's another student, sometimes they're looking for a student. A lot of times it's not on the media either, they
All right.
know how to manipulate, not to put it in